Kethver sat in the cold metal chair and tried not to shake. The machine around his head hummed quietly, but he could feel it digging into his thoughts like sharp claws. His hands gripped the armrest so hard that his claws left marks in the metal. The medical ship was quiet except for the sound of air moving through the vents. 3 years had passed since the war ended, but Kethver still woke up screaming every night. The doctors said the machine could help him. They said it could take away the bad memories that made him afraid to sleep. He was not sure he wanted them gone. "Try to relax, veteran Kethver," said the healer sitting next to the machine. Her name was Sithra, and she had kind eyes that glowed soft blue in the dim light. "The memory extraction will not hurt. We just need to see what happened on that planet." Kethver's mandibles clicked together nervously. He had been a soldier for 20 years before that mission. He had fought in 7 wars and conquered 12 worlds. He had never been afraid of anything until he met the humans. "I was a good soldier," he said quietly. "I followed orders. I did my duty." "No one is saying you did not," Sithra replied. She touched a few buttons on her control panel. "But something happened on Kepler 442b that broke you. We need to understand what it was. The planet had a human name too. They called it Haven." Kethver thought that was funny now, in a bitter way. It had been anything but a haven for his people. The machine started working, and suddenly Kethver was back there. He could smell the strange air of that world, thick with moisture and strange plant scents. He could see the blue sky with its single yellow star. Most of all, he could remember how confident he had been. "Tell me about the mission briefing," Sithra said gently. Kethver's mind went back to the war room on the flagship. Commander Yithmo had stood at the front of the room, his uniform perfect and his medals shining. Behind him, a hologram showed the human planet spinning slowly in the air. "This will be simple," the commander had said. "The humans are new to space travel. They have been on this planet for only 30 of their years. They have no shields, no energy weapons, no gravitic technology. They fight with chemical explosives and metal projectiles." The other soldiers had laughed at that. Metal projectiles. Or what primitive species used? The Zephyrian Empire had stopped using such crude weapons 500 years ago. "How many humans are on the planet?" a lieutenant had asked. "Approximately 8,000, Yithmo replied. "Mostly civilians, scientists, farmers, miners. There may be a few hundred with military training, but nothing significant." "And our force?" 50,000 elite shock troopers, 5 battle groups, air support, orbital bombardment capability if needed." The commander had smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "This is not a war. This is a cleanup operation." Kethver had commanded 3rd Battalion, 2nd Regiment, 200 of the Empire's best soldiers. They had trained together for years. They had fought together on 6 worlds. They trusted each other completely. The plan was simple. Land near the largest human settlement, capture or eliminate any resistance, secure the important facilities, and wait for the occupation forces to arrive. The humans would surrender within days, maybe hours. "What did you know about human psychology?" Sithra asked. "Nothing important," Kethver admitted. The intelligence report said they were emotional and irrational. They formed strong bonds with their groups, but had trouble working with strangers. They were supposed to be physically weak. Their bones break easily. Their skin tears if you cut it. They cannot see well in the dark or hear high-frequency sounds. The reports had been wrong about many things. Kethver remembered standing in the drop pod with his soldiers as they fell through Haven's atmosphere. Through the small window, he could see the human settlement spread out below them. It looked peaceful, neat buildings in straight rows, green fields around the edges, a few vehicles moving slowly along roads. "Target is New Denver," the pilot announced. "Population 3,000 humans. No military installations detected. No defensive systems active." Kethver checked his weapon one last time. It was a plasma rifle that could cut through steel walls. His armor could stop any human weapon they knew about. His helmet gave him perfect vision in any light and protected him from most toxins and radiation. "Remember, we want prisoners if possible," he told his soldiers. The Empire wants to study them, but if they resist, eliminate them quickly and move on. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Vothek, nodded. Should be over in an hour, sir. The drop pods hit the ground hard, throwing up clouds of dirt and debris. Kethver was the first one out, his rifle ready. Around him, his soldiers spread out in perfect formation. They had done this drill 1,000 times. The settlement was quiet. Too quiet. Where are they? Vothek asked, scanning the empty streets with his weapon. Hiding, probably, Kethver replied. Check the buildings. Standard search pattern. Hissa. Soldiers moved efficiently through the settlement. They kicked in doors and searched every room. They found clothes in closets and food still warm on tables. They found children's toys and family pictures. But they found no humans. Sir, called Corporal Zithan from across the street. You need to see this. Kethver jogged over to where his soldier stood next to a large building. The sign above the door had human writing that his translator rendered as Community Center. The front wall had been painted with symbols in red paint. The symbols were crude but clear. A human skull, with 2 bones crossed beneath it. Below that, words in the human language. Welcome to hell. What does it mean? Vothek asked. Psychological warfare, Kethver said, though he felt a small chill run down his spine. They are trying to scare us. But as they continued searching, they found more signs. Paintings on walls showing humans with weapons hunting creatures that looked suspiciously like Zephyrians. Messages scratched into doors. We know you are coming. You made a mistake. This is our world. Sir, another soldier called out, I found something. Kethver followed the voice to the town's central square. In the middle of the open space, someone had built a structure out of metal and wood. It was clearly meant to be a Zephyrian soldier, though the proportions were wrong. A sign around its neck read, The first of many, orders, sir? Vothek asked. Kethver stared at the crude statue. In 20 years of war, he had never seen anything like it. Most species surrendered quickly when they realized they were outmatched. Some fought bravely but conventionally. None of them had ever made art about killing his people before the fighting even started. Burn it, he ordered, and find those humans. They cannot have gone far? But even as his soldiers destroyed the statue, Kethver felt something he had not experienced in years. A cold touch of fear in his combat hearts. The humans had known they were coming, they had prepared. And they had chosen to leave messages instead of defenses. What kind of enemy did that? The machine around Kethver's head hummed louder, pulling him out of the memory. He realized he was breathing hard, his claws digging into the armrests again. That was just the beginning, he said to Sithra. We thought we were hunting them. We did not realize that they were already hunting us. The healer's blue eyes were wide. What happened next? Kethver closed his eyes and let the machine pull him deeper into his memories. We found out what humans really are. The memory machine pulled Kethver deeper into his past. He could feel Sithra watching him as the images became clearer and more painful. His mandibles clicked faster as he remembered what came next. The first human he ever saw was named Jake Morrison. Kethver had been leading his soldiers through the forest outside New Denver when his motion sensors picked up movement. They had been searching for 6 hours and found nothing but empty buildings and strange messages. His troops were getting nervous, and Lieutenant Vothek kept looking over his shoulder like something was following them. Contact, 200 meters. Northeast, Corporal Zithan reported through the CUM system. Single target, moving slowly. Finally, Kethver muttered. He raised his rifle and activated his scope. Through the trees, he could see a figure in green clothing walking along what looked like an animal trail. The figure was tall and thin, with pale skin and dark hair on its head. Just one human? Vothek asked. Where are the others? We will. Ask him, Kethver replied. He switched his CUM to broadcast mode and spoke in the human language. Human, you are surrounded. Drop any weapons and surrender. You will not be harmed if you cooperate. The human stopped walking. Slowly he turned toward their position. Even at this distance, Kethver could see the human's face clearly through his scope. The creature looked old for its species, with lines around its eyes and scars on its cheeks. It was wearing some kind of military uniform with strange symbols and metal tags. What surprised Kethver was that the human did not look afraid. Instead, it lifted one hand and made a gesture with its middle finger that Kethver as translator could not identify. "What did it do?" Vith asked. "I am not sure," Kethver admitted. "But I do not think it was surrender." The human reached into a pocket and pulled out a small device. It spoke into the device in its own language, too fast and quiet for Kethver's equipment to translate clearly. Then it put the device away and walked into the trees. "Should we pursue?" Zithan asked. Kethver thought about it. One human against 200 Zephyrian soldiers seemed like poor odds for the human. But something about the creature's behavior bothered him. It had not run, it had not hidden. It had looked directly at them and then calmly walked away. Yes, he decided. "Third squad, pursue the target. Everyone else, maintain perimeter security." 20 soldiers moved through the forest after the human. Kethver watched through their helmet cameras as they followed the trail. The human was not trying to hide its tracks. If anything, it seemed to be leaving an obvious path for them to follow. "Target acquired," the squad leader reported. "It is moving toward a small structure. Looks like a hunting cabin." "Approach carefully," Kethver ordered. "It might be a trap." The soldiers surrounded the cabin and moved in. Through their cameras, Kethver could see it was a simple wooden building with one door and 2 windows. Smoke was coming from a metal pipe on the roof. "Human, exit the structure with your hands visible," the squad leader called out. A voice answered from inside, speaking clearly in accented Zephyrian. "Come on in, boys. Coffee's fresh." Kethver felt his combat heart skip a beat. The human had learned their language well enough to use it casually. How long had they been preparing for this invasion? The soldiers kicked in the door and rushed inside. The cabin was empty except for a table, 2 chairs, and a small cooking area. On the table sat a metal container that was producing steam and a smell that made the soldiers' olfactory sensors twitch. Next to the container was a piece of paper with writing in the human's language. The squad leader picked it up and read it aloud as his translator worked. "Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison, United Earth Colonial Marines. Serial number 2847 Delta 9. I know you can understand this, so listen carefully. You made 3 mistakes today." "What mistakes?" Vathik asked over the cum. The squad leader continued reading. "First mistake, you assumed we would be easy to catch. Second mistake, you followed me exactly where I wanted you to go. Third mistake, you split up your forces." Kethver felt ice forming in his stomach. "Get them out of there, now." But before the squad could move, the world exploded. The blast came from under the cabin floor. Chemical explosives, crude but effective, lifted the entire building into the air and scattered it in burning pieces. The 20 soldiers inside never had a chance to scream. Through his command scope, Kethver watched the fireball rise above the trees. His suit's radiation detectors started clicking as debris rained down around his position. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing left but a smoking crater and scattered pieces of armor. "All squads, report status," he called into his cum. "First squad, all present. Second squad, all present. Fourth squad, all present." Third squad did not answer. "Sir," Vathik said quietly, "how did it know we would split our forces?" Kethver did not have an answer. According to intelligence reports, humans were supposed to be predictable and emotional. They were not supposed to be able to think several steps ahead and set complex traps. "Reform defensive positions," he ordered. "Watch for more humans." But the forest around them seemed empty again. Whatever humans were out there, they were invisible to Zephyrian sensors. Kethver activated his communications array and tried to contact the other battalions. "First Battalion, this is 3rd Battalion, report status." 3rd Battalion, this is 1st. We have encountered human resistance. Lost 30 soldiers to explosive devices hidden in buildings. No visual contact with enemy forces. 2nd Battalion, reporting. We have lost 2 squads to sniper fire. Cannot locate the shooters. They appear and disappear like ghosts. Kethaver's mandibles clicked rapidly. Across the entire landing zone, the same thing was happening. Humans were killing his soldiers without being seen, using primitive weapons that somehow worked better than they should have. 4th Battalion report. 4th Battalion has secured the spaceport, but the humans destroyed all the fuel supplies before we arrived. Also, they left us a present. What kind of present? A recording device. The message is in our language. Do you want to hear it? Kethaver closed his eyes. Play it. A human voice came through the CUM system, speaking perfect Zephyrian with only a slight accent. It was a female voice, calm and confident. Hello, invaders. My name is Amy Carter, and I speak for the human colonists of Haven. You probably think you have superior technology and training. You probably think this will be easy. You are wrong about both things. We have been studying your species for months, ever since our deep space sensors detected your ships. We know how you fight. We know how you think. And we know how to kill? You, the voice paused, and Kethaver could hear other humans talking in the background. You have a choice, the voice continued. You can leave our world now, and we will let you go in peace. Or you can stay and find out why humans are the only species that hunts predators for fun. You have 1 hour to decide. The message ended. Kethaver looked around at his remaining soldiers. They were all staring at him with wide eyes, waiting for orders. These were veteran troops who had fought on dozens of worlds, but he could see fear in their faces. Sir, Vathek said quietly, what are your orders? Before Kethaver could answer, his personal CUM unit chirped with an incoming message from Commander Yithmal. All battalion commanders, report to the command post immediately. We have a situation. As Kethaver gathered his remaining soldiers and started moving toward the landing zone, he could not stop thinking about the human female's voice. She had sounded like she was looking forward to the fight. For the first time in his military career, Kethaver wondered if his people had made a terrible mistake. The memory machine hummed louder as Kethaver's mind drifted deeper into the painful past. Sithra adjusted the controls carefully, watching the veteran's vital signs spike as he relived the third day of what was supposed to be a simple invasion. Kethaver could smell the smoke again, the acrid scent of burning metal, and something else he had not identified until much later. It was the smell of fear. Commander Yithmal stood in the center of the makeshift command post, his usually perfect uniform stained with dirt and alien blood. Around him, holographic displays showed red markers. Scattered across the map of Haven, each red marker represented a squad that had stopped responding to communications. Report, the commander ordered as the battalion leaders gathered around him. 1st Battalion is down to 60% strength, Colonel Vashtar said. His voice was tight with anger. The humans are using hit-and-run tactics. They strike without warning and vanish before we can respond. 2nd Battalion lost another 20 soldiers this morning, added Colonel Nethry. Sniper fire from impossible ranges. Our sensors cannot detect the shooters. Kethaver looked at his own casualty reports. In 3 days, his battalion had lost 80 soldiers. 80 of the Empire's best warriors killed by primitives using chemical weapons and metal projectiles. What about air support? He asked. Grounded, Yithmal replied grimly. The humans have some kind of portable anti-aircraft system. We lost 2 gunships yesterday. The pilots never even saw what hit them. The commander activated a recording device. Listen to this. We intercepted it from their communications network. Human voice filled the command post. It was male, speaking in the human language with subtitles appearing in Zephyrian script. This is Sergeant Morrison to all units. The bugs are getting nervous. They keep bunching up when they get scared. Amy, can you hit that group near the power station? A female voice responded. Negative, Jake. Too many civilians in that area. But I have eyes on the patrol moving through Sector 7. Pete, can you give me some noise to cover my shot? A third voice, younger sounding, answered. Copy that, Amy. Demolition charges ready. Give me 10 seconds and you will have all the noise you need. The recording continued for several minutes. The humans were coordinating their attacks with casual efficiency. using their real names and discussing tactics like they were planning a training exercise rather than fighting for their lives. How many of them are there? Colonel Vashtar asked. We estimate no more than 50 active combatants, Yithmol replied. 50 humans against our remaining 30,000 soldiers. Kethver felt his mandibles click involuntarily. 50 humans had killed nearly 20,000 Zephyrian troops in 3 days. The mathematics made no sense. They have advantages we did not anticipate, the commander continued. They know this terrain perfectly. They have prepared defensive positions and supply caches. Most importantly, they seem to understand our equipment and tactics better than we understand theirs. How is that possible? Nethri demanded. Intelligence failure, Yithmol admitted. The humans have been monitoring our communications and studying our military procedures for months. They know how we move, how we think, how we react to different situations. Kethver remembered his own encounters with human tactics over the past 3 days. They never fought fair. They never gave the Zephyrians a chance to use their superior firepower or training. Instead, they used tricks and traps that no honorable warrior would consider. The human called Amy Carter was the worst of them. Kethver had personally lost 12 soldiers to her sniper attacks. She never took the same shot twice, never used the same hiding place, never fell for the same trap. His soldiers had started calling her the Ghost. I want to hear about this Amy Carter, Sithra said softly. Adjusting the memory extraction controls, Kethver's mind focused on the 4th day of fighting. His remaining soldiers were moving through the ruins of what the humans called the communications center. The building had been hit by orbital bombardment, but the humans had continued using it somehow. Spread out, he had ordered his troops. Watch for booby traps. The communications center was a maze of broken walls and twisted metal. Perfect sniper territory. Kethver kept his soldiers moving in unpredictable patterns, never staying in the open for more than a few seconds. Sir, Corporal Zeathan called out, I found the main transmitter array. Kethver moved carefully toward his soldiers' position. The transmitter was a collection of human technology mixed with salvaged Zephyrian equipment, crude but functional. Can we trace their signals? He asked. Negative, sir. They are using frequency hopping and encryption protocols. Very sophisticated for such a primitive species. A soft whistle filled the air, followed by the wet sound of impact. Zeathan's helmet exploded in a shower of blood and bone fragments. The corporal fell forward without making a sound. Sniper! Kethver shouted, diving for cover behind a twisted piece of metal. Locate and eliminate. His soldiers scattered, seeking protection behind whatever cover they could find. Kethver activated his suit's sensors and began scanning for the shooter's position. According to his equipment, there was nothing out there but empty ruins. Another whistle. Another dead soldier. Where is she? Lieutenant Vathak demanded, pressing himself against a concrete wall. Unknown, Kethver replied. Sensors show no thermal signatures, no energy readings, no movement. A third shot took down Sergeant Klexier. This time, Kethver caught a glimpse of the muzzle flash, just a tiny spark of light from a building 300 meters away. But when he focused his scope on that position, he saw nothing. Target building 7, 3rd floor, western window, he reported. All units, concentrate. Fire. 20 plasma rifles opened up on the building, turning the concrete walls into molten slag. When the firing stopped, the entire 3rd floor had been vaporized. Silence fell over the ruins. Kethver waited, watching for any sign of movement. The next shot came from a completely different direction. How? Vathik whispered as another soldier died. How did she move so fast? Kethver was beginning to understand. The human was not moving fast. She was never where his sensors told him she should be. She was using some kind of camouflage or stealth technology that made her invisible to Zephyrian detection systems, but that was impossible. Human technology was centuries behind Zephyrian science. Sir, Private Yextan called out, I see something. What? Mud. Lots of mud, shaped like a person. It is moving. Kethver looked where his soldier was pointing. At first he saw nothing. Then slowly he began to make out the shape. It looked like the ruins themselves had come to life and started crawling. Across the ground, the shape stopped next to a pile of rubble and raised what might have been an arm. Kethver saw the glint of metal and realized the human was aiming a rifle at him. He dove sideways, just as the shot fired. The projectile passed through the air where his head had been a fraction of a second earlier. "There!" he shouted. "Fire! Everything!" But by the time his soldiers could aim their weapons, the mud-covered shape had rolled behind cover and disappeared again. For 2 more hours, the deadly game continued. The human would appear, kill one of his soldiers, and vanish before they could respond. She never made the same mistake twice, never used the same trick twice, never gave them a chance to predict her next move. Finally, when Kethver had only 8 soldiers left, the shooting stopped. A voice called out from the ruins, speaking accented. "Zephyrian, you can leave now. I am done with target practice for today." Kethver wanted to order his remaining troops to charge the position to find this human and tear her apart with their claws. But he could not afford to lose any more soldiers. "Withdraw," he ordered quietly. As they retreated, he caught one last glimpse of the human sniper. She stood up from her hiding place and pulled off a camouflage covering that had made her look like a pile of debris. Underneath, she was just a small female with short brown hair and pale skin. She looked directly at him and smiled. The memory extraction device pulled Kethver deeper into his darkest recollections. Cythera watched his vital signs spike as his mind returned to the 7th day of what had become a nightmare. His claws scratched against the metal armrests as he remembered when everything changed. By the 7th day, Kethver's battalion had been reduced to 43 soldiers. The humans had turned the entire planet into a hunting ground where the Zephyrians were the prey. Every building could be a trap. Every shadow could hide a sniper. Every step could trigger an explosive device. Commander Yithmal had stopped holding briefings. Instead, he sent desperate messages to the fleet in orbit, begging for reinforcements or evacuation. The response was always the same: hold position and complete the mission. Kethver stood in the ruins of what had once been a human school, watching his soldiers check the bodies of 3 civilians they had found. The humans looked like they had been dead for several days. "Sir, Lieutenant," Vathek said quietly, "these are not combatants. They are just ordinary people. A teacher, an engineer, and someone who worked with food preparation." "I know," Kethver replied. "But they chose to stay and fight instead of surrendering." That was what bothered him most about these humans. Even the civilians were dangerous. The teacher had been carrying detailed plans of Zephyrian troop movements. The engineer had built explosive devices from kitchen chemicals. The food worker had been poisoning supplies intended for Zephyrian consumption. An explosion echoed across the settlement, followed by screams over the communication system. "First squad, report status," Kethver called into his CUM device. "Static," answered him. "Second squad, what is your position?" "Second squad leader here," came a panicked voice. "First squad is gone, sir." The humans collapsed, an entire building on them. We counted 15 soldiers trapped in the rubble. Kethver closed his eyes and tried to control his anger. "How many humans were responsible?" "Unknown, sir. We never saw them." Another voice came over the CUM system. It was Sergeant Morrison, speaking in perfect Zephyrian. "Attention, Zephyrian forces. This is Jake Morrison. We need to talk." "Do not respond," Vathek whispered, but Kethver was tired of running from ghosts. "This is Battalion Commander Kethver. What do you want, human?" "I want to show you something," Morrison replied. "Something important. Are you familiar with human history, Commander?" "No." "Then let me educate you. My species has been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We have fought with sticks and stones. We have fought with metal blades and chemical explosives. We have fought in deserts and jungles and frozen wastelands. We have fought each other so often that warfare is in our blood." Kethver felt his mandibles clicking nervously. "What is your point?" "My point is that you picked the wrong species to invade, but I am willing to demonstrate this fact in person. Meet me at the chemical processing plant in 1 hour." Come alone, that is obviously a trap, Vathik said. Of course it is, Kethver agreed. But I want to see this human for myself. The chemical plant was located on the edge of the settlement, a complex of pipes and tanks that processed materials for the human colony. As Kethver approached, he could see that something was wrong. Smoke was rising from several locations, and the air smelled of burning chemicals. His armor's environmental systems immediately activated, sealing him inside a protective bubble of filtered air. The chemical mix in the atmosphere would kill most oxygen-breathing species within minutes. Morrison, he called out. I am here. Good, a voice replied from somewhere in the maze of pipes. Come inside, I have something to show you. Kethver moved carefully through the plant, his weapon ready. The temperature was rising rapidly and his suit's cooling systems were working hard to keep him functional. Some of the chemical tanks had been deliberately ruptured, creating a toxic environment that should have been deadly to any life form. He found Morrison standing next to a burning chemical reactor, calmly checking the readings on a human-made device. The human's equipment was melted and blackened. His clothing was burned in several places. His exposed skin showed severe chemical burns that should have killed him hours ago, but he was still standing. Still fighting. Impressive facility, Morrison said without looking up from his device. Your people built good equipment. We have been using it to manufacture some interesting compounds. You are dying, Kethver observed. Your injuries are fatal. Morrison finally looked at him. His face was a mass of burns and chemical damage, but his eyes were still alert and focused. Probably, but I will not die for a few more hours. Plenty of time to finish my work. What work? Teaching you about humans. Morrison gestured toward the burning reactor. Do you know what we are processing in this facility? Chemical manufacturing, nothing that concerns the Empire. Wrong. Morrison smiled, and Kethver could see that the human's teeth were stained with blood. We are manufacturing weapons. Specifically, chemical weapons designed to kill Zephyrians. Kethver raised his rifle. You are bluffing. Am I? Morrison pulled out a small device and showed it to him. This is an atmospheric dispersal unit. When I activate it, it will release enough chemical agent to kill every Zephyrian on this planet within 6 hours. Your suits will protect you for maybe 30 minutes. You would poison your own world to stop an invasion? Absolutely. Morrison's burned fingers moved toward the activation switch. But I am offering you an alternative, which is? Leave. Take your ships and your soldiers and get off our planet. Do it now, and I will not activate this device. Kethver stared at the human through his scope. Morrison was clearly dying. His body was shutting down from chemical exposure and thermal damage, but his hand was steady on the device and his voice was calm. You are one human, Kethver said. We have 30,000 soldiers, and we have 50 people who refuse to surrender. Morrison coughed, spitting blood onto the ground. 50 humans who know this planet better than you ever will. 50 humans who have been preparing for this fight longer than you have been traveling to get here. Another voice came over Kethver's system. It was Dr. Lisa Thompson, the human scientist. Commander Kethver, this is Dr. Thompson. I need to share some information with you. I am listening. We have been studying your dead soldiers for the past week. We understand your biology now. We know your weaknesses, your atmospheric requirements, your thermal tolerances, your nutritional needs. Kethver felt ice forming in his combat hearts. Continue. We have developed 17 different ways to kill your species using materials available on this planet. Chemical agents, biological weapons, environmental modifications. Jake's dispersal device is just one option. Morrison nodded weakly. Lisa is very smart. She used to study alien life forms before you decided to invade our home. But here is the interesting part, Dr. Thompson continued. We also discovered something about human biology that your intelligence reports missed. What? Humans can survive in conditions that kill most other species. Extreme temperatures, toxic atmospheres, radiation levels that would sterilize a planet. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Morrison looked directly at Kethver through the smoke and flame. That chemical fire should have killed me 3 hours ago. The temperature in here would cook most aliens in their own armor. The atmospheric toxins would dissolve their lungs. But you are still here, I am still here, and I will keep fighting. Until my body physically cannot continue. Morrison's thumb moved closer to the activation switch. The question is, are you willing to find out how long that takes? Kethver realized he was looking at something he had never encountered before. Not just a warrior, but a weapon that had been shaped by evolution and hardened by a hostile world. Morrison was not fighting for glory or conquest. He was fighting for survival, and there was nothing more dangerous in the universe. How long? Do I have to decide? He asked. Morrison checked his device again. Blood was running from his mouth and his hands were shaking. My medical readings suggest I have about 10 minutes of consciousness left. After that, this device activates automatically. Kethver stared at the dying human and understood that the war was already over. The memory extraction reached its final phase as Kethver relived the last day of the invasion. Sithra watched his vital signs carefully as the machine pulled the deepest memories from his mind. His claws had torn through the metal armrests, and his breathing was rapid and shallow. Kethver remembered running. For the first time in his military career, he was retreating not because of orders, but because of fear. Jake Morrison had died in the chemical plant, but not before activating 3 smaller dispersal devices that released toxic clouds across the settlement. Kethver's remaining soldiers had barely escaped with their environmental suits intact. The human had kept his word about the timer, but he had made sure the Zephyrians understood what they were facing. By the 9th day, only 37 Zephyrian soldiers remained alive on the entire planet. They had barricaded themselves in the landing zone, using their remaining equipment to create a defensive perimeter. Commander Yithmo sat in the center of the camp, staring at casualty reports that made no sense. 50,000 elite troops had been reduced to almost nothing by a handful of human colonists. Evacuation ships are 3 hours out, he announced to the surviving officers. We just need to hold this position until then. Kethver looked around the camp. His soldiers were exhausted and traumatized. Many of them jumped at shadows. Others refused to remove their helmets, convinced that the humans had poisoned the air itself. Sir, Lieutenant Vivek said quietly, movement detected on the perimeter. Through the defensive barriers, Kethver could see figures approaching under a white flag. There were 5 humans walking calmly toward the Zephyrian position. He recognized 3 of them from intelligence photos. Amy Carter, the sniper who had killed dozens of his soldiers. Dr. Lisa Thompson, the scientist who had weaponized an entire planet. And leading them was a young human male who looked barely old enough to fight. Who is the young one? Commander Yithmo asked. Alex Johnson, Kethver replied, reading from his tactical display. 19 years old, listed as a maintenance technician. Mechanic? What threat could he pose? Kethver thought about everything else the intelligence reports had gotten wrong. I would rather not find out. The human stopped just outside weapon range, and the young one called out in perfect Zephyrian. Attention, Zephyrian forces! I am Corporal Alex Johnson of the Colonial Defense Force. I request permission to approach under the white flag. Granted. Yithmo replied through the external speakers. But maintain your distance. Johnson walked closer, his hands clearly visible and empty. He was small even for a human, with pale skin and bright blue eyes. He looked like he should be in school, not leading a military negotiation. I bring an offer from the surviving colonists of Haven, he said formally. We are prepared to discuss terms? Terms? Yithmo laughed, a harsh clicking sound. You are 50 civilians against the might of the Zephyrian Empire. What terms could you possibly offer? Johnson smiled politely. The terms are simple. You have 1 hour to evacuate this planet. Take your ships and leave our system. Never return. And if we refuse, then we demonstrate why humans are classified as a Class X. Evolutionary threat by 6 other galactic civilizations? Kethver felt his mandibles clicking rapidly. What did you say? You did not know? Johnson looked genuinely surprised. The hegemony, the crystalline collective, the void touched, and 3 other major powers all have standing orders to avoid. Human space. They learned the hard way that our species does not accept defeat. Dr. Thompson stepped forward. We have spent the last week analyzing your technology and biology. Your evacuation ships are approaching from the northeast. We have tracked their flight path and calculated their orbital mechanics. So we have prepared a demonstration. She gestured toward the young mechanic. Alex, would you show them what you built? Johnson pulled out a small device that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts and salvaged equipment. This is a gravitational pulse generator. I built it using components from your gunships and some things we had lying around the colony. Impossible, Yithmel said. Gravitational manipulation requires technology centuries beyond human capabilities. Maybe, Johnson replied. But I did not build it according to your specifications. I built it according to human engineering principles, which are, if it works, it is not stupid. The young human activated the device. High above them, one of the approaching evacuation ships suddenly changed course. Its gravitational drive failed, sending it tumbling through space like a broken toy. Emergency signals filled the communication channels as the ship's crew fought to regain control. How? Kethver whispered. Simple physics, Dr. Thompson explained. Your ships rely on stable gravitational fields. Disrupt the field at the right frequency, and the drive becomes unstable. Alex figured out the math in about 6 hours. Johnson deactivated his device and the ship regained control. That was just a warning shot. The next pulse will be permanent, Amy Carter spoke for the first time. We have similar devices positioned around your entire landing zone. Your remaining soldiers, your equipment, your communication systems, everything can be disabled whenever we choose. You are bluffing, Yithmel said, but his voice lacked conviction. Are we? Johnson asked. He activated his device again, and every piece of Zephyrian equipment in the camp shut down simultaneously. Weapons, armor, communication systems, environmental controls, everything went dead for exactly 10 seconds before coming back online. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Zephyrian soldiers checking their equipment frantically. That was 10 seconds, Amy Carter said calmly. Next time, it will be permanent. Commander Yithmel stared at the 3 humans standing outside his defensive perimeter. A mechanic, a scientist, and a sniper had just demonstrated the ability to destroy his remaining forces without firing a shot. What do you want? He asked finally. We want you to leave, Johnson replied. We want you to tell your empire that. Humanity is not interested in conquest or expansion. We just want to be left alone. And if the empire sends a larger force? Dr. Thompson smiled. Then we will teach them the same lesson we taught you. Humans do not surrender. We adapt, we learn. We survive, and we remember. The 49 other colonies in human space have been watching your invasion through our communication networks. Amy Carter added, they have been learning from our example. Do you really want to fight 49 more wars like this one? Kethver looked at his commander and saw defeat in the older Zephyrian's eyes. Yithmel had conquered 12 worlds and commanded fleets of thousands of ships, but he had never faced an enemy that refused to accept the possibility of defeat. 1 hour, the commander said quietly. 1 hour, Johnson agreed. He looked directly at Kethver. Oh, and Commander? When you report back to your empire, make sure you tell them exactly what happened here. Tell them about Jake Morrison. Tell them about Amy Carter. Tell them about all the humans who chose to fight instead of surrender. Why? Because the next time your people encounter humans, we want them to understand what they are facing. The 3 humans turned and walked away, leaving the Zephyrians alone in their camp. 57 minutes later, the last Zephyrian ship left Haven's orbit, the memory extraction machine powered down with a soft hum. Kethver opened his eyes and looked at Sithra. The healer was staring at him with a mixture of fascination and horror. What did you learn from this experience? She asked. Kethver was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I learned that there are some species in the universe that cannot be conquered. Not because they are stronger or more advanced, but because they refuse to accept defeat. Humans fight with a desperation and creativity that comes from millions of years of survival on a world that tried to kill them. And now? Now the Empire has classified human space as forbidden territory. Not because we cannot defeat them, but because the cost of victory would destroy us. 50 humans killed 50,000 of our best soldiers. What would 50 million humans do to our empire? Sithra made notes on her medical tablet. Will you be able to sleep now? Kethfer thought about Jake Morrison dying in the chemical plant, still fighting until his last breath. He thought about Amy Carter, invisible and deadly. He thought about Alex Johnson, barely adult but capable of disabling advanced technology with spare parts. I will sleep, he said finally, but I will remember. And when young Zephyrians ask me about the war, I will tell them the truth. Which is, humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. They are not the smartest or the most advanced. But they are the most dangerous because they never give up. And that makes them more terrifying than any weapon we could ever build.